So right now I'm here with Pat Russo. He's a guitar teacher over in Wallingford. So Pat, what made you want to become a guitar teacher?
That's a good question. I always wanted to be a teacher for as long as I can remember. Even when I was a little kid, I always thought that I wanted to help people learn things. And my first thought was I was going to teach computers because I was really into computers in the 80s when they were just starting to come out. And I had this dream that I was going to have a class of adults and teach them how to use the computers, and kind of never really got going. It's tough when you're 10 to do stuff like that. So kind of fell into music after a couple of years of doing that. And after playing music in bands and doing that kind of thing, started working in a music store. And the owner of the store said, hey, what do you think about giving guitar lessons? And I thought, oh, that would be great. I always wanted to be a teacher. And that one question turned into a 31-year career of teaching guitar to people.
Was there like a specific song, riff, or band that made you want to start playing guitar?
Yes. So Iron Maiden was the band that got me to play guitar because I was in a record store and I heard this song. Andrew knows it because Andrew's a metal guy. Flight of Icarus from Iron Maiden. I remember being in the record store, Merle's Record Rack in Orange, Connecticut. I was 13 years old or 12 years old, and I remember thinking, oh my God, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. I hadn't heard anything that cool, and decided that I wanted to buy the record, which was crazy. I never really bought records. I just listened to the radio. Bought the record, went home, checked it out, and then inside the sleeve, when you pulled out the albums, people who ever bought vinyl, you pull the album out, and there's a picture of the band, and it was a bunch of guys, long hair guys, and it looked so cool. I'm like, God, I would love to be a guy like this with the long hair and heavy metal dude, and I know Andrew could totally relate to that. And I just thought in my head, one day I should buy a guitar and try to do this so I could, try to get into that kind of thing, and it worked, and that's exactly what I did.
Can you play the Flight of Icarus for us?
That's first thing I ever tried to learn. I got the guitar, I started learning that. And of course, when you learn something that you really, really love and you play it to death, you end up hating it. So now I don't care about it anymore. But there's plenty of other things that I listen to that I love, and I try not to learn how to play them. I just stay away from learning them.
So you've been a teacher for 31 years now. Is there a specific type of music you prefer teaching? Is it metal, or do you like to teach everything?
Nope, I'll teach anything. I was just thinking about this. The last student wanted to learn how music works, like how the system works and how songs are written. And I really love talking about that kind of stuff because that's the instructions. It's going over how songs are written and helping people learn that is giving them the recipe to do their own songs and make up their own thing. I love teaching people to write their own material. That's really what I hope everyone would do when they're looking to play music, is to learn how to play it so they can write their own tune and get out their own feelings through music. I think that's the ultimate reason why you'd want to play. In my opinion, of course, it doesn't have to be that way for other people, but I think it'd be best if you learn how to play something and then write your own tune and express yourself that way.
So you've played with bands your whole life, kind of.
Much,
so
yeah.
You've played with what kind of bands?
So when I first started, we were just doing other people's music, and that was like rock at the time. So at the time, Motley Crue was really big. We were doing Dio and Iron Maiden tunes and so forth, and I did that for a long time, and then got into my own music band, do my own music. Right around 17 years old, we started doing originals, nothing but our own stuff, and that went really well for a long time, and that went into another band I got into that was similar. And then at one point, I was working at the music store I was just talking about, and there was another employee that worked there. He was an older guy, and he was playing other people's music for money. They call it cover music. He was doing older stuff in bars and playing in different restaurants, and they were making good money, and I needed to make extra money. And he said, you should just come play with us. Just show up. Just come down, and you're just going to learn it on the job. And I never did anything like that, ever. We would always prepare when we were doing our own music. We would over-prepare. And now this guy wanted me to just show up and not have any idea what I was going to do. But he wouldn't teach me the song, so I had to go and just basically wing it. And it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot of how to survive a gig, how to get through it when I don't quite know what to do or how to do it. And from that point, I started doing a lot of covers. So that band did some oldies, like, well, I say oldies. It's like, Motown stuff. And they were doing some rock and roll from the 60s and 70s. And then I got into a blues band, another band that was a jazz kind of group. Then a country group that went on for far too long. Not really into the country thing, but we did that too. And then back to, I did some disco tribute. I got some pretty funny pictures of me with some crazy outfits for that. And my wife and I currently do covers from all genres. I kind of took the best of everything I learned through all those bands and put them into one band that my wife and I perform in. Now, we also do our own music, too, in another group. So my wife and I have two groups. One where we do covers for income at bars and restaurants, and another band we do our own music for no money because that's just kind of how it goes.
So speaking of gigs, is there really a lot of places for young bands to play original stuff anymore?
I thought about this because we talked about this for a second, and my first thought was no. And then I'm thinking, that's not exactly true because there's the scene. I'll talk about the scene we were talking about, music scene. The gentleman I just told you about who did the covers, who asked me to join his band, he would always say to me how there was no music scene when I was playing original music in a music scene. And I thought to him, like, well, that's crazy because I'm in one and there's plenty of places to play. In his mind, there were, back when he was doing music, there was literally 10 places a town you could play at and make actual real money doing your own music. When I got into it, there was maybe one a town or maybe one every few towns, and there was no money in it. They never paid you to play your own music. It was all for free. He thought that was crazy, and I thought, hey, I don't care. I just want to play our own music wherever we could play it. Now, there's like one or two places in the whole state that I know of that do that kind of thing. But then there's places that maybe I haven't heard of, or people are doing shows in their own homes now. That's a big thing now, home shows. So I wouldn't know that scene because I wouldn't have been invited to that yet or wouldn't be in that. So the scene is wherever people are going to get together and congregate to watch music. So you can have a scene in your own town in basement shows. You can have a scene where people are going and playing at the local Knights of Columbus Hall. Where I played, they don't have that anymore. Like Toad's Place is really not what it used to be. There's a place called The Space. Of course, I'm sure people know The Space or the Outer Space, and they've changed hands now, but that's pretty cool. It's changing now and different places. But so the scene is, I guess, wherever you make it and whatever you do with it, and wherever if you gather people together to listen to music. But definitely different than the 70s, definitely different than the 80s. It kind of morphs and evolves based on who's going to go to it and what they're going to do.
So do you think that there's young and new bands doing exciting and new things in rock and metal, or is it a lot of just kind of repeating stuff that's already been done?
Well, you're always going to repeat what's been done in one form or another. It's really hard to come up with something original. I don't know if you've heard of Greta Van Fleet. They're getting a lot of flack because they sound like Led Zeppelin, and they really do, but they're doing something that speaks to them. They're playing a music style that they really like themselves, and it's coming out as that because they love that. So it's hard to critique that as a ripoff in that they're doing what they love, and it's really what you want to do with music is do what you love, what you like. I'm sure there's a ton of thoroughly unique bands doing things that have never been done all over the place. It's just a question of finding them, and with the internet being giving so accessible to everyone and accessible to distribute your music, it has created an ocean of bands. Like when I was a kid, so many kids who played were in bands. There were so many bands in town, but so few ever got heard because there was no way to get your music heard. You were only heard by your friends, and the local townspeople would know your music. Now you can do a song in your own house, record it, and get it out on the internet, and someone in Japan can hear it tonight. So that's getting your music out there. But now, because of that, there's millions of people doing that, and it's a sea of people doing the same thing. So it's hard to weed through and find something interesting when there's so much to choose from. So it's a question of how willing you are to hunt for it. And some kids I have who I teach, they come in with some really interesting things they found on YouTube. And I love YouTube. It's a great way to locate new bands and new talent and get yours out too if you do that kind of thing. And that's really what it should be about. Again, it's hard to get found, but at least there's an opportunity. Better than when I was a kid. There was no opportunity. There's no way to be found. None. You made a tape and you gave it to your friends, and that's it. That's as far as it went. You couldn't get it to anyone in California unless you mailed it to them and hoped that they listened and hoped that they sold it or gave it out. And that's a gamble. Where now it's guaranteed. You can put it on YouTube and someone in California can hear it. The first 10 minutes it's up, they can hear it, and that's cool. So I find that pretty interesting.
All right, so now I want to do a lightning round of quick answer questions.
Oh boy, for me it's impossible.
Okay, best live band you ever saw?
Oof. I really liked this band called Blue Murder. They had John Sykes from Whitesnake and some other bands in it, and then a couple other members from other famous bands. And I saw them at Toads. It was like the second band I ever saw at Toads. I really loved them. I thought they were great.
If you can play guitar in any band, what band would it be?
Man, that's tough. I love so many bands. And I never really thought about it. It's a good question. I don't know. I'd have to say probably Iron Maiden. That would be awesome.
Best metal vocalist or singer?
Dio.
Why Dio?
I love Dio. I loved his voice. There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, always in my first thought is that always, who I like best vocally.
Most unique metal band?
It's a good question. I don't know. Unique wise, that's a tough one.
Or most groundbreaking?
Wow, that's tough. There's so many interesting bands that do so many different things. I don't know. I'm going to have to come back to that.
Metallica or Megadeth?
For me, which era? Early or late?
Overall. Overall. When we go overall.
Oh, man, I'd probably have to say Megadeth for me. It's a tough call.
Ozzy or Dio?
Dio for me. I mean, I love Ozzy too, but I always like Dio most, so. David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar?
David Lee Roth.
Yes, good.
Yeah, David Lee Roth.
Firing a question to the interviewer.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Oh, most innovative metal band. That's tough.
I would say Metallica when they first came out because no one had ever heard a riff as complicated as Master of Puppets.
Or Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
Because they kind of made up that whole deal.
Or
Maybe.
Iron Maiden.
Yeah, I mean, there were some bands that were already doing that kind of thing too, but in Black Sabbath, I guess would have to have blazed the trail. I'd have to say Black Sabbath. So.
Any band you haven't seen live yet that you want to see live?
I thought about. I mean, I want to see the Stones, but I'm not dying to see them, so it's not something that I have to do. I haven't seen Black Sabbath with Ozzy, so.
I did. You're never going to see Black Sabbath with Ozzy again.
You never know. When they need money, they come back.
Maybe. All right, so Pat, thanks for talking with us and shredding.
Cool. Thank you very much.